A phrase is a group of words which are just connected, but it doesn't give a complete idea. Like in the garden, on the table, the boy, the big library, the beautiful flower. All these are phrases. And later we looked at clauses, and we know that clauses are groups of words which have subjects and predicates. In a clause there will be one subject and one predicate, and that's a clause. And we understand that some clauses are complete, some clauses are incomplete. Complete in the sense that they can give us a complete idea, but incomplete clauses cannot give us complete idea. And hence we can say that the complete clauses are independent clauses and the incomplete clauses are dependent or subordinate clauses. Okay, hence we can say that we have independent clauses. Independent clauses are also called principal clauses. They are also called main clauses. Similarly, we have sentences. Okay, we understand that a sentence is a group of words which give us a complete idea, which are of course all the words in a sentence, they are of course arranged in a particular order. Okay, and we get a complete idea, like the boys play in the ground, the boys play cricket. All these are complete sentences, and we understand that these are all simple sentences because there is just one clause. And later we discussed different types of sentences. We have simple sentences, complex sentences, and compound sentences. A simple sentence is a sentence which has just one clause. A complex sentence is a sentence which has one main clause and one or more subordinate clause. And there are three types of complex sentences. Like we name the subordinate clause. Maybe we call it an adverbial clause, we call it an adjectival clause, we call it of course an adverbial or a noun clause, right? And that is based on the function of the clause. If the subordinate clause does the function of an adverb, we call that subordinate clause adverbial clause. If the subordinate clause does the function of a noun, we call that subordinate clause a noun clause. And if the subordinate clause does the function of an adjective, we call it adjectival clause. In short, we can say that we have three types of subordinate clauses: the adverbial, the adjectival, and the noun. Alright, the noun clauses. So we have simple sentences, complex sentences, and one more, that is compound sentences. And remember, a compound sentence is a sentence which has two or more main clauses. Two or more main clauses. Okay, and we know Raju likes to play football, but his sister likes to dance. Okay, so here you have Raju likes to play football. That is the first clause, independent clause, main clause. It is of course connected to another one. His sister likes to dance. His sister likes to dance is again a complete clause. So it is of course a sentence, right? And we can say that we are combining two independent clauses with a conjunction. But here, and we have a compound sentence, right? So we understand that we have simple sentences, complex sentences, and compound sentences. Okay, and we have to keep in mind another very important thing, that is coordination and subordination. Okay, coordination is the process of combining two simple sentences into a compound sentence with coordinating conjunctions such as and, either, or, then, but. There are of course many other conjunctions. Okay, neither, nor, then, also, then of course for, or, etc. Similarly, we have subordination. Subordination is the process of combining one or more subordinate clauses with subordinating conjunctions. Say, for example, you say, this is the boy who helped me yesterday. This is the boy is the main clause. Who helped me yesterday is the subordinate clause. And we are combining the main clause to the subordinate clause. And this process is known as subordination. So these are the basic notions we have to keep in mind when we study syntax. Understand the fact that syntax is the study of sentences. All right. And now, having understood the phrase, clause, sentences, coordination and subordination, we move on to another very important area. And that important area is syntactic models. Syntactic models. Okay. Last day, of course, we had a 2-hour lecture there, but many were absent. So I'm repeating all this. Remember, what do you mean by syntactic models? Syntactic models are approaches to the study of syntax. Syntactic, what are syntactic models? Syntactic models are approaches to the study of syntax. And what is syntax? Syntax is, of course, the study of the sentences. And syntactic models refers to the study of sentences and constituents of sentences. Okay, you have a sentence, right? Say, for example, John likes Mary. Alex plays cricket. This is a bright day. Okay, it's a rainy day. These are all sentences. And in syntactic analysis, or in, of course, syntactic models, we are using different methods or tools to look at what the sentence is made of. And remember, there are different approaches or different models for the study of the constituents of the sentences. There are so many models, and all this can be generally called grammar. This is the study of language. This is the study of course, the rules and conventions of a language, and it can be called grammar. But this is, of course, what we mean by syntax, or, of course, this is one of the branches of linguistics. And so far as we are concerned, we have to understand 5 of the approaches or models or methods of studying a sentence, and they are traditional grammar. And in the discussion of traditional grammar, we will look at the way or the method in which traditional grammarians explained or analyzed sentences. Traditional grammar, what happened, what are the notions of sentence, and how did they explain sentence in traditional grammar? What is wrong with traditional grammar? Why is traditional grammar just found maybe irrelevant or incomplete? These are our discussion points. Okay, what is traditional grammar? Is it okay? Does it help us to understand a sentence? If it doesn't, how? If it doesn't, why not? Okay, these questions we discuss, right? And now that one grammar or one syntactic model is not sufficient, grammarians always look forward, or rather they always search, or rather research, and they come out with new methods. And after traditional grammar, we have another syntactic model, that is structural or descriptive grammar. Okay, traditional grammar, it is known as prescriptive grammar, because traditional grammar is rule bound. There are a lot of rules. Conventions are important to traditional grammarians. So traditional grammar is known as prescriptive grammar. But after prescriptive grammar, okay, say after our Ferdinand de Saussure 1915 course in general linguistics, etc., we have a different approach to the study of language, different approach to the study of grammar, and it is, of course, more broad in the sense that what is important is the language. What is important is speech. Okay, the writing is not important, but in traditional grammar, what is important is writing. In structural or descriptive grammar, what is important is language. Speech is important after some time, but I'm just giving you an introduction to all of this, right? So we will study structural or descriptive grammar, and there are different followers of there are different structural linguists. Okay, and all these structural linguists came forward with different methods, and one such method is what is known as immediate constituent analysis. Immediate constituent analysis is a syntactic model or method which was advocated by the American linguist Leonard Bloomfield. All right, and the immediate constituent analysis was not sufficient, was not enough to just illustrate sentences or of course language. And another model, another syntactic model or another syntactic method was developed, that was phrase structure grammar. Okay, and even phrase structure grammar is incomplete or insufficient, and thereafter, see, we have other grammarians. Say for example, we have Chomsky. Chomsky again came forward with another approach, syntactic model, that is transformational generative grammar. So these are the 5 syntactic models or approaches to the study of sentence, or approaches to the study of the constituents of sentences we have to learn. Now we will look at each of these one by one, right? Traditional grammar refers to the grammatical concepts and methods before course in general linguistics of 1915. Remember Ferdinand de Saussure. Ferdinand de Saussure is the father of modern linguistics, scientific study of language, all right? And he came forward with his notion of structural linguistics in in the early decades of the 20th century. And you understand the fact that he passed away in the year 1913, but after his death, his disciples, Charles Bailey and all, compile his lectures and publish the course in general linguistics, which contain all the notions of Ferdinand de Saussure. And we know that structuralism is of course an extension of different approaches or literary movements like New Criticism, Formalism, Russian Formalism, etc. And we understand that to the structuralists, what is important is form, all right? And we understand that they say that language has a peculiar structure, all right? And they look at the very sign, signifier, signified. They look at, of course, the phonological level, the morphological level, and of course the syntax or the sentence level, all right? So the traditional grammar refers to grammatical concepts before structural linguistics, that is 1915. The rules of traditional English grammar were mainly inheritance from the Latin-based grammar of the previous centuries. So remember, when you learn about languages, we understand that we have thousands of languages, and of all the close to 8,000 languages of the world, the youngest language is the English language. And you understand that English, because you study it in the social and cultural history of Britain. You study British history, and you know that English is, of course, a very young language. And English is divided into, English language can have 3 periods, like the Old English period, the Middle English period, and the Modern English period. And you know that the Old English period is the Anglo-Saxon period, and the Anglo-Saxon period is, of course, the 4th century AD. All right, and we understand the fact that England was occupied by the Iberians, the Celts, the Romans. After the Romans, we have, of course, the Anglo-Saxons, then the Scandinavian people or the Viking people. Thereafter, of course, the Norman people, William the Conqueror and all. So understand that English is not a homogeneous language. English is a hybrid language. It's a heterogeneous language. There's a lot of elements in it, and the grammar of many languages like the Roman language, Latin, say for example, some Greek, some French, some Norse, some Celtic. Of course, a lot of Anglo-Saxon is in the English language, and the rules of these languages also influence the English language. And hence we say that traditional grammar is a grammar which is, of course, an extension of traditional English grammar is a grammar which is an extension of the classical languages, especially Greek and Latin, especially Latin, because the Romans came to the British Isles and they settled there, all right? And with the Romans came the Latin language, all right? And thereafter you have the Norse people coming, and of course the French people coming. So French also influences. So we understand that the traditional English grammar were mainly inheritance from the Latin based grammar. And remember, a lot of scholars like Ben Jonson were deeply learned in classical languages like Greek and Latin. So you study about Shakespeare and you understand that Shakespeare was the grammar school. He was just to the grammar school, but his contemporaries like the university which were to the colleges under the University of Oxford or Cambridge. You have the university wits, and they always ridicule Shakespeare for not going to the universities, right? Okay, but now, so far as we are concerned, we have to understand the fact that these scholars, so-called Ben Jonson, Christopher Marlowe, Robert Greene, okay, these university wits, they were deeply learned in classical languages, right? And they conceived of the classical languages superior to the vernaculars. They thought that they are superior because they are university wits. They were to the university and they know the classical languages, and this kind of a superiority attitude these people had towards languages as well. So they considered the English language inferior, and they thought the Greek, the Latin, French, Italian, such classical languages, of course, superior. And the rules of these languages had a lot of significance, right? Understand the fact that traditional grammar was, of course, influenced by classical languages. So traditional grammarians formulated the rules of English based on Latin. So you will understand, if you study some Latin, you will understand the so-called conjugations, right? The case grammar, okay? So a noun can, of course, have different forms, right? So all the grammatic rules of Latin is becoming part of English because the concept that such classical languages are superior. And remember, because of the very socio-political, geographical conditions in which the English language is developing. Like I said, remember the Iberians, the Celtic, the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, the Scandinavians, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, then of course the French people, Normans, right? So all these languages influence, and under the influence of that, right, the English language is inheriting or borrowing the rules of other classical languages like Latin. All right. Now, another aspect of traditional grammar. Traditional grammar neglected the distinction between the notions of form, function, and meaning. Hence, the definition of the parts of speech, word classes, was incomplete and unsatisfactory. So remember, here you will understand there was a time when it depended much on a grammatical book called Wren and Martin. Wren and Martin. Today, Wren and Martin is considered obsolete or stereotyped, and maybe you can say that Wren and Martin could be an example for traditional grammar, because some of the interpretations, some of the grammatic notions in Wren and Martin is exactly, of course, an extension of traditional grammar, in which, of course, you hear about parts of speech, case grammar, conjugations, okay, so all that. But the traditional grammar doesn't tell us anything about what is called function, right? Say, for example, you have different parts of speech like noun, pronoun, verb, adjective, adverb, okay, conjunction, interjunction, lot of parts of speech. But those grammarians, the so-called traditional grammarians, didn't speak much about function as, say, for example, the noun can function as, of course, maybe subject, noun can function as, of course, object, noun can, of course, be object complement, all right? So all the different, right? The function part of elements of language was just neglected by, undermined by traditional grammar. This is another aspect of traditional grammar. Now, another very important aspect is, of course, the phonology aspect of language. I'm reading. Traditional grammar ignored the aspects of phonology. It did not make any attempt to analyze the sentence into phonological structure. It did not give any significance to the suprasegmental or prosodic features. Okay, suprasegmental features or prosodic features are known as secondary phonemes, like stress, intonation, juncture, rhythm, all right, all that. So, traditional grammar or traditional grammarians looked at a sentence. Okay, the sun rises in the east. All right. When they look at that, it is just the sun rises in the east. They never think about a possibility like the sun rises in the east. All right, that the tone is very crucial there. When we talk with such a rising tone or rising tune, the meaning is different. All right. So this is another aspect of traditional grammar. Traditional grammarians did not give due respect to phonology, the study of phonemes. All right. And hence, of course, all right, maybe their discussion or study of language was incomplete. All right. Because remember, a sentence is not just the letters of the alphabet. It is not just the phrase or clause, subject and predicate. No. A sentence is everything in it. Like you have phonemes in it, you have morphemes in it, you have, of course, the very sentence, right? That is syntax. So you have to, a structuralist would always say, according to the structural linguistics or structural grammar or descriptive grammar, the duty of a grammarian, the function of a structuralist is to explain the sentence at three levels: phonological level, morphological level, and syntactic level. Now we move on to the next aspect of traditional grammar. Traditional grammarians lay down rules of do's and don'ts instead of describing the behavior of the language. Hence the traditional grammarians, or rather traditional grammar, is prescriptive rather than descriptive. So this is an answer to one question. We are discussing at the moment, why is traditional grammar called prescriptive grammar? Traditional grammar is called prescriptive grammar because it's giving lot of significance to rules. Modern grammar or structural, the so-called all the grammar that come after traditional grammar, like structural grammar, structural linguistics, or descriptive linguistics, immediate constituent analysis, phrase structure grammar, transformational generative grammar, all these grammars are descriptive, right? Descriptive, because to them what is important is the very purpose of language. Okay, the purpose of language is communication. The purpose of language is not to confuse, bewilder the speakers, the users of language. So the traditional grammarians, because they gave a lot of significance to rules, they just confused the users of language, right? And because they gave a lot of significance to, too much significance to rules, traditional grammar is known as prescriptive grammar rather than descriptive grammar. Okay, to the structuralists, no matter whether they are theorists or linguists, to them form is important. Form is important. All right, and to them, of course, the text is important. All right, and of course they are concerned with the letters of the alphabet, the words, of course the phrases, the clauses, and of course the sentences, right? And they said that see, language has a structure. They said language has, of course, different, you can see different layers for language. Okay, rather, they said that maybe structural literary criticism, they said that culture is full of structure. Okay, so you learn languages by structures only. We learn languages by structures only. Say, for example, alphabetic level, word level, phrase level, sentence level. Okay, and besides this is the basic principle of structural grammar, descriptive grammar. Besides, Ferdinand de Saussure, the father of modern linguistics, right, spoke about sign, signifier, signified, lang, parole, then linguistic value, synchronic approach to the study of language, diachronic approach, syntagmatic and paradigmatic. So all these basic notions are repeatedly occurring in structural or descriptive grammar. Structural or descriptive grammar, okay, the history. The beginning of 20th century was marked by the new approaches suggested by Ferdinand de Saussure and the Prague School of Linguistics. So here we have the Prague School of Linguistics. Say, for example, you have Roman Jakobson. Roman Jakobson was, of course, a Russian, but later he moved to, from Russia, he moves to United States of America, and he is, of course, following or just using the method of Ferdinand de Saussure, all the basic principles of Ferdinand de Saussure, and he is also, of course, a structuralist. Okay, so Prague School is one of the schools of structural linguistics. Okay, remember that Prague School is one of the schools of structural linguistics, right? Because suggested by Ferdinand de Saussure and the Prague School of Linguistics in Europe, the anthropological linguistics in America. We studied that, right? We know Levi-Strauss and all, and the advances then being made in behavioral psychology. We studied it, right? Last week I was speaking to you about Sigmund Freud. I spoke to you about Lacan. All right, and you know all that. Okay, how mind is being interpreted in different structures, layers, right? Similarly, how culture is also of different structures. Culture is full of structures, right? Okay, and mind is, of course, you can see different structures or layers for the very unconscious, right? Okay, so all this is the influence of structuralism. See, your Ferdinand de Saussure. Consequently, scientists began to study language in terms of observable and verifiable data obtained from the behavior of the users of language. Okay, and now we have the sign, signifier and signified. And structurally said that. I changed the slide. Is it changed? Do you have a different slide on your side? I've changed the slide. Hello? All right. Okay, now remember, it's quite simple, and remember, I'm just reading out. There isn't anything confusing. You don't have to, of course, worry much, but you should know what traditional grammar is, what descriptive grammar is, how is traditional grammar different from descriptive. The structural or descriptive school of grammar is associated chiefly with the American linguist Leonard Bloomfield. Okay, remember the name of Leonard Bloomfield. The main argument of the structuralist school was that language had a structure. I said it. I have been talking to you all this for maybe months. In the beginning of this semester, I started with structuralism, and I said like letters of the alphabet, words, phrases, sentences, all that. So this is what the structuralists say. Main argument of the structuralist school was that language had a structure. To them, language is composed of morphemes in particular sequence. John loves Mary. Cat chases rat. Or the cat chases the rat. Sun rises in the east. Look at that. Utterance is a string of morphemes. And morphemes were, you know what a morpheme is? A phoneme is the smallest speech sound. A morpheme is the smallest meaningful sound unit. Alright? So remember all that. You studied all that. I hope you studied all that. Thus, An utterance is a string of morphemes, and morphemes were in turn composed of phonemes in particular order. Okay, cat is k, a, t. Pit is p, e, t. So this is how you explain language in structuralism. You have to explain the linguistic element you are given. Maybe it's a letter, maybe it's a word, maybe it's a phrase, maybe it's a sentence. You have to explain it at three levels: phonological level, morphological level, syntactic level. And for that, structural or descriptive grammar is very, very efficient and helpful. So they said that a sentence is, or an utterance is, a string of morphemes, and morphemes were in turn composed of phonemes in particular order. Thus, phonemes, which are the units of sound, combine with morphemes, which are the units of meaning, which again combine to form phrases, clauses, and sentences. Every language consists of such units, and the task of the linguist is to identify them and show how they are organized in the language. Very simple and easy. What is the duty of a structural linguist? What does a structural grammarian do? A structural grammarian is explaining the given linguistic element, no matter whether it is a word, a phrase, a clause, or a sentence, at three levels: phonetic, morphemic or morphological, and of course syntactic. As in all sciences, here also they started with collected data, namely the spoken language, which is then analyzed and described on the basis of the most objective aspect of language, that is form, because they saw language as a structure. So remember, traditional grammar, the written language is important, writing is important. Descriptive grammar, speech is important. So here the language is of course having a form, all right? And now that language has a form, you can look at anything that has a form has a structure. That's what structuralists say. And now that language has a form, you can analyze the structure. To this school, descriptive school or structural school, language is primarily speech and not writing. Writing is only a representation of speech, without which a language does not exist. So remember, to the structuralists, speech is more important and writing is just a representation of whatever is spoken. Language is as it is used by its native speakers and not what grammarians say it ought to be. So here you have the violation of the principle that grammar, rule, okay, is significant. No. If the native speakers say it's I, or they say maybe a traditional grammar, it's I is correct, but if they say it's me, all right, okay. If native speakers say it's me, it's okay. It's me is okay, all right, that's okay. So what language is what the native speakers speak, right? That's what structural linguists say. That's what descriptive grammar says, all right? So language is as it is used by its native speakers and not what grammarians say it ought to be. And now I'll explain this. So look at this. You say John likes Mary. You say John loves Mary. This is what you see in writing. John loves Mary is what you see in writing. But look at what I say right now. John loves Mary. John loves Mary. John loves Mary. John loves Mary. Look at that. So with the change of stress in each sign, meaning differs. And that is what is more important to the structural grammarian. Speech is primary. It is not these three words you see in paper. John loves Mary. John loves Mary is not John's love for Mary all the time. It can even be a question like, John loves Mary? Is it something else, right? Is it John loves Mary or John loves somebody else? Maybe Lucy. John loves Lucy. All right. So all that is implied in your speech. All that is implied in your prosodic features or suprasegmentals, stress, intonation, and all that. Okay, rhythm. All right. So traditional grammar ignores all that, but structural or descriptive grammar considers all that. This is the difference between traditional grammar and structural grammar. And they also say no language is superior or inferior to any other. Each is adequate for the communicative purposes of its community. Say I don't know if I told you, maybe as per ethnologue. What is ethnologue? Ethnologue is the authentic document on languages. As per the latest edition of ethnologue, you have 7,111 languages. And all these can be, okay, some are dying, some are dead, some are living. But linguists say every language is of equal status. All right. These are some of the notions we have to keep in mind about structural or descriptive grammar. And now we move on to the next syntactic method or next approach to the study of sentences. Okay, my dear students, remember, so traditional grammar does not help us analyze sentences. Structural grammar or descriptive grammar helps us understand or discuss sentences, of course, to a certain extent. And now, so let us think of another syntactic method or approach. And there comes our immediate constituent analysis, IC analysis. Okay, IC analysis. Yeah. So now let us understand what is immediate constituent analysis. Very simple. Immediate constituent analysis is a kind of syntactic approach or method in which the linguists or grammarians look forward to the ultimate constituent. What is the last independent item you can reach at in a sentence? The ultimate constituent. All right. Okay. This is remember, this is one of the structural methods. Analysis and immediate constituent analysis is a kind of analysis in which grammarians divide the sentence into different parts or other different constituents. All right. Immediate constituents, right? You have a sentence. That sentence can be divided into next level, that is the next immediate level, and that can again be divided into another immediate level, that can again be divided into another immediate level. At last you come to what is known as the ultimate constituent, and the ultimate constituent cannot be further divided. All right, this is the very syntactic analysis or another syntactic method or approach, immediate constituent analysis. The structural linguists divided a sentence into its immediate constituents, ICs, I for immediate, C for constituents, to study the structure of a sentence. Immediate constituent analysis is one of the strong methods of analyzing a sentence linguistically. It aims at finding out the ultimate constituents of a sentence and their relationships with one another. The constituents are nothing but the morphemes or words or groups of morphemes which, when constructed or structured into successive components, form utterances or sentences. It is the discovery of these constituents which has come to be known as immediate constituent or IC analysis. Immediate constituent analysis was introduced by Leonard Bloomfield in 1939. Bloomfield illustrated the way in which it was possible to take a sentence, look at the sentence, poor John ran away, and split it up into two immediate constituents. You are splitting poor John ran away into subject and predicate. Poor John ran away. These being in turn analyzable into further constituents. Poor John ran away. Alright. So a sentence is seen not as a sequence or a string of elements, but as being made up of layers of constituents, each cutting points or knot in the diagram being given an identifiable label look at the tree diagram below. We have a diagram here. Look at that. So you have one model. I told you last day. X is a sentence, and sentence is first layer. Second layer is Y and Z, that is subject and predicate. Third layer is poor John ran away. So a sentence in IC analysis or immediate constituent analysis, a sentence like this one can have three layers. Sentence layer 1, immediate constituent or immediate level, Y and Z, subject and predicate, and the third constituent or immediate constituent or ultimate constituents are poor John ran away. So it can be shown like this, or it can again be shown in another way. That is, look at that. Poor John ran away. Poor is adjective, John is noun, adjective plus noun is the subject, ran away is verb plus particle, verb plus particle is predicate, subject plus predicate is sentence. Right? So here you see the different layers. Alright? Poor John ran away, adjective plus noun plus verb plus particle, subject plus predicate, sentence. This is how a sentence is analyzed in immediate constituent analysis. Okay, so nothing but quite simple. Okay, I repeat, immediate constituent analysis helps us to come to the very ultimate constituent of an utterance or a sentence. Okay, we find each and every layer in a sentence. Now, okay, so immediate constituent analysis of course helps us to analyze the sentence, but it has a lot of, it doesn't work all the time. It doesn't work all the time. It has a lot of limitations. It has a lot of limitations. And now remember, my dear students, we are going to discuss the limitations of IC analysis or immediate constituent analysis. This is very important for you. Maybe exam point of view, you may have to, okay, what is IC analysis? Explain or analyze a sentence with the help of IC analysis. You have to do that with tree diagram. And next, it can be what are the limitations of IC analysis. All this together is an essay. Write an essay on immediate constituent analysis. All right. In that case, you will write in your introduction about different types of syntactic methods. You'll write about traditional grammar. You'll write about descriptive grammar. You'll write about different descriptive grammars. And one such descriptive grammar is immediate constituent analysis. Having explained immediate constituent analysis with diagrams, tree diagrams, okay, maybe the example, poor John ran away, you can come to limitations of IC analysis. We are explaining it right now. The limitations of IC analysis. What are the demerits of IC analysis? Number one, immediate constituent analysis cannot account for constructional homonymy. That is the phrase hunting dogs. Okay, in your IC analysis, you won't be able to explain hunting dogs because it has ambiguity there. That is constructional homonymy. Hunting dogs, right? So look at that. Hunting dogs can mean many things. It could be, okay, hunting dogs, hunting as an adjective. Okay, hunting dogs. That is, of course, dogs which are used for hunting. Number two, it can be another meaning, like hunting as a gerund. Or rather, hunting as a verb, right? Hunting as a verb. Hunting dogs. Okay? The act of hunting dogs, like the act of killing dogs, like day before yesterday, Kozhikode Mayor Dr. Bina Philip was just complaining about the attack of stray dogs and the necessity of just neutralizing them. So hunting dogs. Okay, look at that. So this kind of ambiguity cannot be resolved in IC analysis. Does this mean dogs which are used for hunting, or does it mean the process of attacking or hunting dogs? This is one of the limitations. Is it clear? Hello? Is it clear? Have you understood? Yeah. Now the second limitation. Ambiguity. So this is there are different kinds of ambiguity. Ambiguity may be what do you mean by ambiguity? Ambiguity is of course multiple meaning. Like I will explain that with another example. Okay, look at that. Flying planes can be dangerous. Look at that. Flying planes can be dangerous. Come on, one of you, Jane, what are the meanings you get? I don't know if Jane is having a good data, because Jane last time said that she's having idea connection and it is not of a good speed and all. So can you respond to me, Jane? What do you mean by flying planes can be dangerous? What do you mean by that? Hello? Or come on, Dilbar, what do you mean by that? It's quite simple. Flying planes can be dangerous. What is that? Come on. There is ambiguity there. Yeah. Very good. That is of course being a pilot, right? A pilot is flying a plane, and that is of course dangerous. Very good. Another thing. Come on. Second meaning. All right. Such a plane. Yeah. Very good. Very good. A plane that's just flying in the sky can be dangerous, right? Anything can happen. Remember what happened in Karipur year before. All right. So ambiguity may be like, thank you, Kiran. Thank you, Dilbar. Ambiguity may be lexical. What do you mean by lexical? Word level, dictionary meaning, right? Okay. Lexical. Okay. The dictionary meaning, right? Ambiguity can be lexical. It can be constructional, like in hunting dogs. You are combining two words, right? Or it can be something like derivational. Let's say, for example, you are fixing a word in another context, right? Okay, you are combining, right, one word to another in a particular sentence, right? So ambiguity, meaning problems can just occur because of the position of the word derivational. Say we have examples there. Lexical ambiguity arises from the same word having more than one meaning. The word bank. Bank can be World Bank. Bank can be, of course, Federal Bank. It can also be the bank of a river. Look at that. So this cannot be explained in IC analysis. Construction ambiguity is due to difference in layering. Example, old men and women. Old men and women. Ambiguity there. One meaning, men are old, women are old, also old. Another meaning, only men are old, women may not be old. Not clear. So that is of course constructional ambiguity. All right, look at that. So different meanings, right? These are all limitations of IC analysis. Another that is of course derivational ambiguity arises from the same constituents functioning differently. Okay, same constituents functioning differently. Derivational phrase, the love of God. Love of God. Say for example, love of God can be God's love for men. It can also be man's love for God. Look at that. So these kind of ambiguities cannot be explained with IC analysis, and this is of course one of the limitations of IC analysis. Now we look at another big problem or demerit of IC analysis, the problem of discontinuous immediate constituents. Say some sentence structures cannot be just analyzed. Rather, you cannot just find the different immediate constituents, right? A construction often cannot be cut into two continuous ICs because the elements that belong together are separated in the sequence. This phenomenon is known as discontinuity. Example, the construction is he coming? Is he coming? Is he coming? All right. In this, maybe when you say he is coming, you can just find the layers. He is the subject, is coming is the predicate. Okay, he is of course a pronoun. Is of course auxiliary verb, present tense. Coming is of course come plus ing. All right, that is okay, verb come plus ing because of continuity. All right, that is he is coming. But is he coming? We have a problem of finding the other constituents, right? And this is again another problem or limitation of IC analysis. IC analysis fails to explain sentences like this. All right, that is problem of discontinuous ICs, immediate constituents, right? The constituents are not continuous and hence you cannot explicate that. All right. Now the third problem is the problem of embedding. What is embedding? All right, one within the other is embedding. IC analysis cannot account for sentences involving embedding. Example, the construction, the boy who won the prize is my cousin. Look at that. The boy won the prize. The boy is my cousin. So such kind of expressions, all right, embedded, right, constructions cannot be analyzed by IC analysis, right? And now we come to another problem, demerit of IC analysis, the problem of conjoining. IC analysis cannot handle conjoining. Say for example, I will go and meet him. I will go and meet him. So here you have two clauses combined by a conjunction and this kind of conjoined clauses or sentences cannot be completely explained by IC analysis. All right. So this is what we have to remember about immediate constituent analysis. Quite simple. Remember, this is of course a method of explaining sentences, and in this method of syntactic analysis or syntactic approach, the linguist is looking for finding the immediate constituents. At last he comes to the ultimate constituent. Now we move on to the next syntactic method, that is of course phrase structure grammar. All right. So remember, immediate constituent analysis, phrase structure grammar, transformational generative grammar, these are all three different grammars of the descriptive or structural grammar. Okay. And now we have to understand phrase structure grammar. So in phrase structure grammar, okay, I'm just giving you a nutshell or a gist of what phrase structure grammar is. In phrase structure grammar, the grammarian just makes a lot of structures or what is called phrase structures or rewrite rules. Remember. And they say that phrase structure grammarians say that a sentence can be rewritten, or rather the structure of a sentence can be found or learned by just looking at all the different phrase structures. Say for example, a sentence can have of course different phrase structures. Say for example, you say that the basic phrase structure or rewrite rules, you are depending on some rewrite rules. You are rewriting, like you have immediate constituents in a sentence, you have phrase structures or different rewrite rules to explain a sentence. Say for example, you will say a sentence. What is a sentence? A sentence is yes. And what is an S? An S is a combination of noun phrase and verb phrase. And thereafter you will explain what a noun phrase is. In a noun phrase, you have a noun and the determiner or article. In a verb phrase, you have a verb plus, remember, it could be an adverb, it could be an adverbial, it could be a particle, or it could be anything like that. A phrase structure grammar is one that analyzes utterances, sentences in terms of syntactic constituents. Syntactic constituents, what? Nothing. The constituents of sentence. It contains a set of rules called phrase structure rules or rewrite rules. So what are the terms or concepts or terminologies you use to point out the elements of a sentence, phrase structure or rewrite rules? And what is a rewrite rule? Look at that. A rewrite rule provide a set of directions which will generate an abstract framework of basic sentence. A rewrite rule shows how a symbol is expanded. Phrase structure expansion rules rewrite one symbol into another unit we reach the ultimate constituents beyond which we have left nothing to expand. Look at this. We can derive the deep string of the following sentence by framing the following phrase structure rules. Sentence. Which is the sentence? The boy admires sincerity. Okay. Which is the first rewrite rule? The sentence is yes. Okay. Remember, my dear students, you have a lot of sentence rewrite rules. Okay. Phrase structure grammar. You are analyzing a sentence with rewrite rules. Look at the slide. Rewrite rule number 1, rule number 2, extreme right hand side you can see rule number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So what is a sentence? Sentence is yes. Okay. What is rule number 1? Sentence is noun phrase plus verb phrase. Rule number 1. And verb phrase. What is verb phrase? Verb phrase is auxiliary plus verb plus noun phrase. Rule number 2. Noun phrase, NP. What is NP? Determiner. It can be auxiliary, demonstrative. It can be anything like that. So look at that. Noun phrase. What is that? Determiner plus noun. Rule number 3. Next is auxiliary. Auxiliary. What is the benefit of auxiliary? What does the auxiliary do? Indicates the tense. Indicates the tense. Alright. That is rule number 4. Determiner. What is determiner here? The article. Rule number 5. Tense. Present tense. Boy admires. Okay. An article. Which is the article there in the noun phrase? The. Rule number 8. Okay. So in short you can say that this sentence is as per the phrase structure grammar. It is of course a string of yes. Okay, a sentence is the plus boy plus present tense admire plus sincerity, and you can express it this way in the form of a tree diagram. Look at that. So phrase structure grammar, a sentence is noun phrase plus verb phrase. What is a noun phrase? Determiner plus noun. What is determiner? Article. THE. Noun, boy. Auxiliary to indicate the tense. Is, was, were. Okay, likewise. Here there is no auxiliary, but the tense is indicated by, of course, the verb itself. Basic form, admire. Boy admires. And you have a zeromorph, that is of course no determiner for the next noun, sincerity. Alright. And this is how a sentence is explained in phrase structure grammar. Okay, I think this is clear to you. So is phrase structure grammar clear to everybody? Remember, phrase structure grammar is another syntactic model in which the grammarian is explaining a sentence with, of course, different rewrite rules. And you have rewrite rules like, okay, sentence, noun phrase, verb phrase, and what are the contents of a noun phrase? Determiner, noun, verb phrase, verb, auxiliary, noun phrase. So you are explaining all the elements of a sentence with rewrite rules, and it can be represented with, of course, a diagram, tree diagram. It can also be represented with the very phrase structure rules. Okay, now just like immediate constituent analysis, phrase structure grammar has also some limitations or shortcomings. Okay, and we are explaining the limitations of phrase structure grammar here. Okay, so I'll just read out all. There are so many limitations. I'll read out one by one. Number 1, phrase structure grammar cannot disambiguate all the ambiguities. Say there are different kind of ambiguities: lexical, constructional, derivational. So all these ambiguities cannot be explained by phrase structure grammar. Number 2, can't account for all syntactical structures. Look at different sentences, my dear students. Simple sentence you have, complex sentence you have, compound sentence you have, then again you have complex compound. So all these sentences cannot be explained by phrase structure grammar. Phrase structure rules are limited and all sentence types cannot be explained by phrase structure grammar. Number 3, phrase structure grammar cannot explicate all grammatical relations. Say for example, you have so many grammatical relations like concord, agreement, number, gender, tense, etc. So all these grammatical relations cannot be explained by phrase structure grammar. Number 4, can't account for discontinuous constituents. Say for example, like we saw some time ago, is John playing? Is John playing? So such kind of expressions, sentences, questions and all, the phrase structure grammar doesn't work because the sentence is in the reverse order, and that is another limitation. Yet another limitation, it doesn't fully reflect the intuitions of a native speaker. Look at that. Intuition. You may mean something. Say I say, yeah, I like it. I like it. All right. You say I like it. Maybe you like it with certain conditions. You like something with certain conditions, right? And all your feelings and your emotions and your worry, tension, etc. cannot be explained in phrase structure grammar. Similarly, phrase structure grammar doesn't always stop the generation of ungrammatical, meaningless sentences. Okay, sometimes remember there are ungrammatical and meaningless sentences, and such a problem cannot be just resolved by phrase structure grammar. And now another one, phrase structure grammar doesn't have precision, simplicity, elegance, power, insight, and the competence of TG grammar. So it is said that phrase structure grammar is not as competent like the transformative generative grammar. Okay, and after this we are going to learn the transformative generative grammar. So another limitation would be very complex and cumbersome. Okay, very causing a lot of problem or hindrance or obstacle, and clumsy with so many constraints. Like a very huge sentence, say for example, complex sentence, you cannot explain with a kind of tree diagram. You cannot have, of course, a lot of rewrite rules. So that is again another problem for phrase structure grammar. And now remember, my dear students, grammarians, because they are not happy with traditional grammar, structural grammar, descriptive analysis, or immediate constituent analysis, phrase structure grammar. Okay, so remember, phrase structure grammar was also advocated by Chomsky. There was, of course, a new method was developed for syntactic analysis, and that is what is known as transformational generative grammar. Okay, so when you study this, you have to remember, in your linguistics, you studied language, and you studied a lot of, I think you have to study 10 definitions of language. And here you have the definition of language by Chomsky. And Chomsky said that, Noam Chomsky said that, language, you have a finite number of utterances. With this finite number of utterances, you can make, of course, infinite number of utterances. That's the basic notion of Noam Chomsky's definition of language. Okay, language is, of course, a set of finite or infinite number, finite or non-finite, right, utterances, and with this finite number of utterances, you can make infinite number of utterances, right? In English, okay, you have close to 3 lakh vocabulary, and with this vocabulary, you can make new utterances, phrases, clauses, sentences. Similarly, with these finite number of utterances already in language, you can make many utterances. What do? You just make a transformation. You have some, a sentence like it is a sunny day. It is a sunny day. You transform and you get a new sentence. It is a sunny day. Is it a sunny day? Is it a sunny day? A different sentence. It is not a sunny day, a new sentence. Isn't it a sunny day? Look at that. So transformations, you change the utterances, you change the elements of language, and you generate. That is the meaning. Transform and generate. I'll read the slide, quite easy. Look at the slide and understand. The name transformational generative suggests that the theory has two aspects. This grammar is both transformational and generative. Noam Chomsky, in Syntactic Structures of 1957, initiated what is known as transformative generative grammar, or TG grammar. Chomsky's persistent emphasis is on the central feature he calls creativity in language. You study, language is symbolic, language is vocal, language is arbitrary, language is creative. And creativity in language is effected through transformations. That is what Chomsky means by transformational generative grammar. Okay, creativity in language. The fact that a competent native speaker can produce a meaningful sentence which has no exact precedent in the speaker's earlier linguistic experience, as well as the fact that competent auditors can understand the sentence immediately, though it is equally new to them. So remember, my dear students, I know some vocabulary item. You also know some vocabulary item. And each sentence I utter is a new utterance. Okay, whatever I speak right now is a new sentence. And that is meaningful to me, that is meaningful to you. This is the creativity aspect of language, and this is what is transformational generative grammar according to Noam Chomsky. You know certain vocabulary item, I know certain vocabulary item, I use the vocabulary item I know, and you understand whatever vocabulary item I use. And I may be using a simple sentence, I may be using a complex sentence, I may be using a compound sentence. Now that you know the rules, the meaning, and the lexical, the constructional, the derivational aspects of all these elements of language, and hence the language is of course meaningful. And Chomsky says that, okay, transformative generative grammar is a grammar that is very good for the analysis of sentence. To explain this rule-bound creativity of a language, Chomsky proposed that native speakers and listeners' competence consists in their mastery of a set of generative and transformational rules. Okay, John loves Mary. Mary is loved by John. Does John love Mary? John doesn't love Mary. Look at that. This is generation and transformation. You transform, you generate. This model of linguistics is called generative in that it undertakes to establish a finite system of rules that will suffice to generate, in the sense that it will adequately account for the totality of syntactically well-formed sentences that are possible in a given language. So now you know vocabulary, you know tense, you know grammar, you know the different notions in grammar, like function, like of course gender, number, passive formation, question formation, different types of sentences. Okay, with these rules and with your transformations of the vocabulary, you generate new utterances. It's transformational in that it postulates in the deep structure of a language a set of kernel sentences. Okay, so now you have to understand what is deep structure and what is, of course, kernel sentences. Very important for us to understand. So when I say kernel sentence, remember, kernel sentences are sentences which are just the basic forms of say you say John loves Mary, I like ice cream, cat killed the rat. These are all kernel sentences. John opened the door. Okay, these are all kernel sentences. നമ്മളൊരു ഭാഷയിലെ ഏറ്റവും ബേസിക് ആയിട്ടുള്ള ഒരു കൺസ്ട്രക്ഷനാണ് നമ്മൾ കേർണൽ സെൻറ്റൻസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ലൈക്ക് SVO, subject, verb, object. That is kernel sentence. This one can be, of course, like John opened door can be again different. Like the door was opened by John. John didn't open the door. Okay, did John open the door? All that are different, right? So kernel sentence is the very basic form of the sentence. And now you have to understand deep structure. What is deep structure? Deep structure refers to the very meaning of the sentence, the very meaning you get. Okay, when you read John opened the door, you get a meaning. Okay, and the sentence, remember, John opened the door is of sounds, meaning and a structure, and all that together is the deep structure. Okay, next you have to understand surface structure. What is surface structure? Surface structures refers to the very phonetic aspect of the very phonetic aspect as well. So now let us come to the slide, the last part of the slide. It is transformational in that it postulates in the deep structure of a language system a set of kernel sentences such as John opened the door, which is in accordance with diverse rules of transformation, serve to produce a great variety of sentences of the surface structure of the language system, as in the following sentences. Look at that. Now look at this slide. Kernel sentence are the basic elementary sentences of the language. John opened the door. You transform the elements of this sentence, you get different utterances. John did not open the door. Did John open the door? Didn't John open the door? The door was not opened by John. The door was opened by John. Was the door opened by John? Wasn't the door opened by John? Look at that. More than 8 different sentences or utterances. All that is possible because you are transforming, or you are changing the sentences or the very elements of this particular basic pattern, the basic kernel sentence. The kernel sentence is undergoing some transformations, and each transformation is generating a new idea. This is what is transformative generative grammar. And now we move on to, of course, a further understanding of the transformative generative grammar. Okay, so the meaning of a sentence is derived from its deep structure by means of semantic rules of interpretation. Say, John opened the door. What is John opened the door? Sentence, noun phrase, a proper noun John. Verb phrase, open the door, is verb is auxiliary plus main verb. Auxiliary is tense form, open. Main verb is open. And noun phrase is the door. John opened the door. Okay, and of course you transform the very elements in the sentence, and you get, of course, new utterances. Okay, that is transformational generative grammar. You have to remember kernel sentences, deep structure, and surface structure. I repeat once again, what is kernel sentence? Kernel sentence is the basic pattern or form or structure of a sentence in every language. And this kernel sentence, you transform or change, you get new utterances. And deep structure is the very meaning of a sentence that you get. Okay, and the surface structure is the very phonetic realization of the sentence. That is, John, look at that. You have another slide here. This is the surface structure. John opened the door. That is the surface structure, the meaning you get. Now we come to, of course, with maybe 5 to 10 minutes, we will wind up the session. Of course, we'll wind up all the important topics. Just be with me. Some 5 more or 10 more minutes, right? So now deep structure, we have to understand deep structure. What do you mean by deep structure? Can you see a new slide? Hello? Can you see a new slide? Hello? Okay, so look at that. deep structure is the output of a phrase structure rules. Okay, deep structure is the output of phrase structure rules. Phrase structure rule, you know, John opened the door, sentence, noun phrase, verb phrase. Okay, so you are indicating that and you get the deep structure. Deep structure is the input of transformational rules, and from the deep structure, of course, you understand how you transform the very sentence. Like John opened the door. The door was opened by John. Did John open the door? Okay, so deep structure is the input of transformational rules. Deep structure is the level at which lexical items are inserted. John plus open plus the door. Okay, deep structure is the level at which the concept of subject and object of a sentence are clearly defined. John, subject, open the door, subject, and deep structure, you get the very subject-object construction. Deep structure is the level at which selection, restriction rules are applied. You understand that, okay, John will always take, of course, John opens or John opened. It is not John opened. Okay, you have grammatical rules, right? That you understand from deep structure. Deep structure is the level at which the meaning of a sentence is elicited or revealed. You get the meaning from deep structure. And deep structure is the level at which ambiguity is solved. If at all there is any ambiguity, any meaning problem, that is again resolved at the deep structure. Okay, now we have another, we can just consolidate the transformational generative grammar, or what happened in transformational generative grammar. Say for example, you have the deep structure, surface structure, and of course the kernel sentence. What happens in our analysis or syntactic analysis of transformational generative grammar? A syntax or sentence is it is phrase structure rules plus transformational rule. Okay, say you have lexicon, or rather you have the meaning in deep structures. Okay, and you change the deep structure, you get surface structure. Say for example, what are the surface structures of John opened the door? John did not open the door. Did John open the door? Didn't John open the door? The door was open. Okay, look at that. So when you utter, you get of course different transformations and you get new sentences, right? And deep structure is the semantic component. That is of course how the sentence is arranged. And transformation, of course, you have different phonemes and different sounds, right? Okay, and semantic interpretation plus phonetic interpretation is possible in transformational generative grammar. And Chomsky says that transformational generative grammar can be a syntactic model which can of course explain the sentence at phonetic, at morphemic or morphological, also syntactic level. And that is with that we conclude transformational generative grammar. There are other theories, but we don't have to worry about all these theories. Say for example, you have theories like standard theory, extended standard theory, revised standard theory, then of course case grammar, scale and category grammar, stratificational grammar, or so many. These are all different syntactic models, but you don't have to worry about these different syntactic models. Just remember your traditional grammar, structural or descriptive grammar, immediate constituent analysis, phrase structure grammar, and transformational generative grammar. Okay, now you have to remember one more concept, that is of course universal grammar. Very simple topic, very easy to understand. I'll tell you. So remember, my dear students, it is very easy to understand. When I taught you, of course, Lacan, right? Not Lacan, of course, right? Jung, right? Carl Jung. So when I spoke to you about Carl Jung, I said about the collective unconscious. And you know the collective unconscious. Okay, what is the collective unconscious? Collective unconscious is the very unconscious that comes to us by heredity. And we have, of course, right, we have the entire humanity and we have the entire human history, and we have all that we inherit from Adam and Eve down to, of course, the man in the 21st century. So a lot of archetypes are passed from the very unconscious of all the people who lived before us. Okay, that is our collective unconscious. Similarly, we have something like universal grammar. What is universal grammar? Universal grammar is the very an understanding or concept, grammatic concept each and every individual has with him deep inside his unconscious. Okay. Maybe you haven't studied the language in detail, but when you listen to him, you understand that he has spoken a wrong sentence, and you can decipher a correct sentence and an incorrect sentence. So this potential, or this ability, or the faculty of an individual to distinguish between the right expressions and the wrong expressions, okay, is from what is known as the universal grammar. Universal grammar is something that we inherit from our ancestors, all the people. Okay, we are Malayalis and we use Malayalam, and when we have certain codes and conventions and rules in our conscious, subconscious and unconscious about the functioning of the language, and that notion of the codes, conventions and rules of Malayalam is what we mean by, of course, the universal grammar of a Malayali. Okay. Similarly, every individual has the basic notion of the functioning of the very language of his first language, and that is the universal language. All right. So this is the maybe gist of what universal grammar is. Universal grammar refers to, of course, the very notion of the functioning of language that is deep in the preconscious or subconscious or the unconscious of each and everybody. We know, all the users of language know how every language function, right? Maybe you haven't mastered that language, but still you know that. Okay, so I think with that we can just come